It's the Osceola's Seminole Sidelines. For more on the Seminoles, including Osceola's coverage from veteran Seminole insiders, message boards, Osceola virtual happy hours, and more, go to theosceola.com. And right now, enter the code FSU20 and get 20% off your annual subscription. That's FSU20.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Osceola's Seminole Sidelines podcast. My name is Patrick Burnham. I'm a writer for the Osceola and the host of Seminole Sidelines. Today I'm joined by Osceola football analyst and former FSU offensive lineman Mark Salva. We are also joined by special guest, former FSU quarterback Danny McManus, who played at FSU from 1984 through 1987 before going on to a almost 20-year career in the NFL and CFL, where he was inducted into the CFL Hall of Fame in 2011. Hey, Danny, thanks so much for joining us today. Mark and I have been talking about this since we started doing these podcasts a year and a half ago, and very excited to have you on.
Oh, looking forward to it, guys. Once I got the call from you thinking that you guys want to have me on, I said, what for? But now that we're here together, I'm looking forward to it, getting back with Mark and that picture behind him with my hands in a precarious position with him. I missed those times, but it's good to see his face and talk a little football.
Yeah, and for those of you guys that don't know that are listening to the podcast, Mark was the starting center for when Danny was the starting quarterback at Florida State from 85 through 87. So they have a unique relationship that only centers and quarterbacks can have. And as a former center, I understand that too well.
I've never been touched that way before and never since.
Well, the reason I know Mark would say that because he did not want to do shotgun. He always invited me to come closer to him. So we didn't start shotgun. We both left. So I knew we had a special bond at that point.
That's because my hands were too big.
So Mark is the reason the fast break offense did not start sooner.
Exactly.
Okay.
I'll take that hit.
Well, hey, Danny, we've got a lot of stuff we want to discuss with you. You had you're one of the top 10 quarterbacks in Florida State history in wins and win percentage. You had a Hall of Fame CFL career, threw for over 53,000 yards. Currently the assistant GM for the Tiger Cats. Is that correct?
Winnipeg.
Blue Bombers.
Blue Bombers. So got a lot to talk about, but got a little housekeeping to do since the last time we had a Seminole Sidelines podcast was after the NC State game. Florida State has since had its last two games now canceled, Clemson and Virginia, and they have now been replaced by Duke and Wake Forest. Duke will come to Florida State on the 12th, and they will go to Wake Forest on the December 19th. And there's been a lot of media attention surrounding Florida State not playing Clemson and Virginia. There's been insinuations by both Dabo Swinney and by Kirk Herbstreit last night on ESPN's college football ranking show that Florida State was ducking Clemson and Virginia. Now that these two games have been rescheduled, I want to get your thoughts on both of you as Florida State's proud Florida State alumni. What are your thoughts on Dabo and Kirk Herbstreit, who are supposed to be professionals, insinuating that Florida State might be trying to duck an opponent or two?
Well, let me go first here. So, first of all, I think Herbstreit's been in broadcasting too long. And if he would sit and think it through as a former player, and if Dabo would think it through as a former coach, I can't imagine a scenario where, as a player or coach, you would not want to compete. You put too much time in. You have so many limited opportunities, regardless of the situation. I mean, we're trying to build a program here. We're trying to lay a foundation. And if that means getting our brains beat in by Clemson, that's part of the process. I mean, we've had a tough year, but in that there's a foundation being laid here. And for a broadcaster to come out and have a knee-jerk reaction like that, and for another coach to kind of break the brotherhood and call out another coach, an organization and team to do that, I think it's petty, number one. And I think if they would think through it, because look, not only do we have an incentive as competitors, They know we have an incentive as a program, but there's huge monetary incentives for us to play these games, not the least of which for the city of Tallahassee, but for the school and for the I'm not sure what the situation is with the TV revenue, but we lost TV time in promoting our program. So if you sit and think through it, it doesn't make any sense, and not the least of which is different degrees to which people are comfortable with assuming risk. If they're more comfortable, great. If we're not, they got to respect that. It's unbecoming. I think it's petty, and quite frankly, I'm insulted. And to say we're scared is just ridiculous.
Right. I think what Mark is, I'm following on his lead is, as football players, you want to play. You come to the school to play the games, so you're going to play the games. And no matter what. Yeah, is this year different? Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of things that the players can't control, but they know they can get on that football field and play, and they want to play. They want to compete. They want to show what they can do. But to say that we're dodging games just so we don't get beat, I don't think that's appropriate to put out there, because you're not only tarnishing the current ball club, you're tarnishing the tradition of Florida State football. I mean, that's not the way Florida State is. That's not the way it'll ever be. We want to go out there and compete. We've had our brains beat out plenty of times back when me and Mark were playing. But we always rose up, got there Sunday afternoon, watched the tape, went there Monday night, made the corrections, and got ready on Tuesday for the next week. So for people to come out and say that you're dodging, I think that's just an easy excuse to say, hey, we don't want to play these games. So it might be them dodging us more than us dodging them. I think it looks like it's just one of those things. It's an odd year. Things are going to happen. People need to be flexible and understand it's not going to go exactly as it's scheduled. There's going to be some alternatives that you got to be ready for. And unfortunately, Florida State, 2 weeks in a row, had to make some adjustments just because it wasn't in the players' control, it wasn't in the coaches' control. It was more medical administration that made the decision.
I guarantee you in 1993, if they could have dodged us, they would have, instead of us beating them to death and 51-0.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and listen, at the end of the day, as we have learned over the last week and a half, this turned out to be more of a procedure and protocols issue than it was anything else, because on Friday night before the Virginia game, it was 11:30 p.m. before Mike Norvell got the positive test results back, and that's when they began contact tracing. And so really, to me, this was a conference issue or an administrative issue at the university level, one of the two, because really somebody should have gamed this out that, hey, what happens if a team takes off and finds out they have a player test positive, or what if the home team has a player that tests positive on Friday night as opposed to Friday morning and the visiting team is already there. They have now changed that protocol, and they now are testing on Thursdays before teams travel. So they've made that a change, but it's hard for me to believe that they didn't have this gamed out better than that. And the victim here has been Florida State's reputation and Mike Norvell's reputation, because I have talked to some of the most loyal Seminoles I know who were doubting whether their team wanted to play. Given that being the case, and now we know that they do want to play because they've rescheduled Duke and Wake, or scheduled Duke and Wake, how important do you guys think it is to the fan base and to the reputation of the university that those games got added to the schedule?
Well, I think it's important for the players. I mean, the players need to play. They need to get better. And Coach Norvell knows that every snap you're going to get better. And I think the fan base will understand that these guys, this is not the games that maybe they wanted to see, the Clemson game or the Virginia game, but these are games that are valuable to what's going to come down the road. And these guys, the players want to play it. The fans they'll understand, they'll adjust, and they'll adapt just like the players do. But I think one of the things is to get back onto the field and improve each snap, getting better at where you want to be. It may not happen this week, it may not happen next week. It could happen 2 or 3 years down the road. We look back saying, the two most important games were those last two in 2020 that got us going on this streak. So I think from a fan standpoint, adapt, adjust, and get ready to watch some good football in the years to come.
Yeah, for me, as cliche as it is, the old coaching cliche is, you're either getting better or you're getting worse. You just don't stand still. And by not playing, it's even worse than standing still. You know, I think the only way we're going to get better is to practice, to play games, to get it on film, for coaches to coach, for players to play. You can't get better playing football sitting around watching film. You get better playing football by playing football. And so every opportunity is valued. So the importance of these games are tremendous for us. It gives us extra weeks for the coaches to coach and the players to be coached and to learn.
Yeah, and I know it's not the same as spring practice because you can't do as much simply because of the fear of injury, but certainly they are making up for some lost practice time. And I am glad we are putting the off-field drama behind us. It's been a long 2 weeks in Tallahassee listening to this soap opera-like take from media and fans alike, and ready to move on. And now I want to get to – now that we've got some of the heavy lifting out of the way, I want to have some fun with Danny and Mark. As I said, you guys were teammates. Danny, you signed with Florida State out of Dania, Florida. You're from Dania. I think that's how you pronounce it, Dania. How do you pronounce your hometown name?
It's all different ways. Dania.
Okay.
Yeah, my grandfather would say it's Dania. So what Gramp says, he says Dania.
Okay. You played at Florida State from 84 to 87, started from 85 to 87. As I said earlier, you had an .864 winning percentage, which is 7th all-time out of any quarterback in FSU history. Your 19-3 record as a starter is 10th all-time. You threw for 375 yards in that classic Fiesta Bowl win. You had a 20-year pro football career starting in 1988 with the Kansas City Chiefs, won 3 Grey Cups with 3 different teams, which is amazing. You were the CFL MVP and our most outstanding player in 1999, as well as the CFL Grey Cup MVP the same year. Threw for over 53,000 yards, was just 5th most in CFL history, 259 touchdowns, 10th most. Member of the FSU Hall of Fame 1995, member of the CFL Hall of Fame class of 2011. And, of course, as you said, you got it. You kept into football right after your career, starting as assistant coach with the Hamilton Tiger Cats in 2008, and then got into operations and executive part of football in scouting, and obviously now assistant GM for the Blue Bombers. But let's so we could go on and on. There's so many things to talk about through career. I had to stop writing. But let's talk about how you got to Florida State, because, I don't know that, and it's always an interesting story. Kind of what was your path to Florida State and Bobby Bowden?
Well, it's a good story. I do use it quite a bit when I speak. It happened that I wanted to go – this is going to sound bad on your podcast, but I wanted to go to the University of Florida. But they dropped me as a quarterback. They went after a guy by the name of Derek Crudup, who was up in Boca Raton area. Florida State came down to watch a football game that I was playing in. The same weekend they were playing Miami in the Orange Bowl. And that game, they were watching Jamal Adjemi, who was a linebacker on my high school team. And in that game, I ended up having a pretty good game throwing the ball. And the next morning, I got a phone call from Chuck Amato, because he recruited that area from Broward County, Dade County. He had all those guys. So I got onto the Florida State radar. Former player at our high school was Tim Flasher, who was an offensive lineman. And Tim spoke highly of FSU. So I got into more conversation with Coach Amato about what they're looking for. They're looking for quarterbacks, that type of stuff. They sent down Mike Kruzek to come watch me at practice. So that was intimidating, because at that time Mike was big muscles and all that stuff. So it was neat to see him, because I remember him from when he played with the Steelers. A couple of times he got into a few ball games. But it all started going, I guess, when Coach Bowden came down for an official visit to see my mom and just to talk to her. 3 people were in the car when they pulled up to the house. It was Coach Amato, Bobby Bowden, and there's one other guy came out there dressed in all black and had a cowboy hat on, and it was Burt Reynolds. So Burt comes to the door. Needless to say, that was it. I mean, Mom was taken back for sure. And she basically, once we had the conversation about going to school, she goes, if Burt Reynolds comes to my house, you're going to Florida State. So that's pretty much how I ended up getting to Florida State. I knew of Coach Bowden. I've always watched the Florida State games on TV, because we got them quite a bit down there. But I think the thing that attracted me most to it was just all the good conversation about Florida State, about what Coach Bowden wanted out of his players, what he was going to do for them, not just on the football field, but off the football field. And then the icing on the cake was to have Burt Reynolds walking through your front door. It was pretty much a done deal once Mom saw that.
You probably would have been happier if it had been Sally Field.
I was hoping. I thought there was going to be a fourth one because I know she's small and she might have been in the back seat. But
yeah.
We did end up getting to meet Lonnie Anderson when they dedicated, Burt Reynolds Hall to us over there from Coble Terrace. So I'll take that one as well. That's a good one to have.
Ours are a little bit similar. I had a linebacker at my school that's what got their eyes on me. His name was Paul McGowan, and but I didn't get Burt Reynolds. I got Burt from Sesame Street, so I still came anyways.
There you go.
You got Burt from Sesame Street. Well, hey, I want to ask you guys. First of all, Mark, what were your impressions when you met Danny, and how did y'all's relationship develop over the 4 years that y'all played together? And what do you remember most about him as a teammate and as a player?
Well, I'll say this about Danny. This is probably the biggest compliment I can give him, is that he is the anti-diva of quarterbacks. And that's what we loved about Danny. Danny was, I think, and he may back me up on this, I think was more comfortable around us big guys and offensive linemen than he was around those prima donna wide receivers. And that endeared him to us for sure. But in that, Danny got along with everybody, obviously, and it was a true essence of leadership on our team. I mean, he was a guy that you wanted to do well for, and he shared in his success. Now I would have loved to seen Danny in modern offenses, that they run now, and even that we ran in the late or middle 90s even. Rather than the strict eye play action pass stuff that we did. But, his success was always deflected and gave credit to everybody else. And you can't fake that, you knew it was genuine. Mm-hmm. And that endeared him to us. I know as offensive lineman for sure. I mean, heck, his room was right next to Joe Ionata's and above mine, so, we hung out a lot for sure.
Danny, who was your roommate in college?
I think first year was Bruce Heggie.
Okay.
And then I got a couple injuries and they put me with Pat Dreiling.
Okay.
The trainer.
I
remember Pat. Yeah.
Somebody
had to make sure you weren't going to sleep every Saturday night.
Right. Yeah. So they, we grew up together here down in when I was over in Hollywood, Florida. I know Pat's family pretty well. And so I was with Pat after that, but I had Bruce my first year. And it was, the whole thing Mark's talking about, it's, I just enjoy playing football, but I enjoy watching others succeed. I think that's the important part of it. I knew hanging around the offensive linemen that they would keep me upright. If they could keep me upright, then I can get it out to the guys and let them do work. I never wanted to do the work myself. I always wanted to try to get the ball out there and let the guys do what they can do. And I had the best seat of anybody at Doak Campbell Stadium. I'd get the ball from Mark and I'd turn around and pass it to Sammy Smith or to Dexter Carter or throw it downfield to I had Hassan Jones and Jesse Hester and all those guys I got to throw the ball to. So, you're looking at the guys that we had a chance to play with. I had one of the best seats around just to be in that huddle with them and just try to get them to play a little bit better than what they were. That was all I want to do is bring confidence into that huddle with every play. And those guys responded well. That's the part about football is that some people don't understand is that it's a full team thing. Everybody has to do their job. And it's about how well we can do our job together. And offensively, we did a great job. We all got along. We all wanted to fight for each other. And we played full 60 minutes. We never really looked at the scoreboard. We just played the whole time and wanted to make sure that we left everything we could out on the field.
Yeah, obviously when you played, I was 15 when my father started coaching at Florida State, which I believe was your sophomore or junior year. And the thing I remember was I always look for the quarterbacks I played with, either in high school or college. I look for guys that carried themselves the way you did. And I've always said that, offensive linemen and teammates will play for a quarterback, and I thought that your teammates played for you because of the toughness. I remember, I still remember the Memphis game, which I'm sure you may not remember, but I remember how tough you were, and I remember that was, if I recall, it was a terribly hot day in Tallahassee. I believe it was an afternoon game, if I'm not mistaken, and I still remember that game. I was a ball boy. I tried to make sure you and Mark had dry balls. All the time because it was hot. Jimmy Callaway used to make me wear that bright yellow shirt that said "Ball Boys" in big block letters on the back. I was so embarrassed as a high school sophomore to wear that in front of all my friends, but I did. But anyway, yeah, I think you had a fascinating career, but you did have injuries. And Mark mentioned that he wished you could see play in today's offenses. What was it like playing in Coach Bowden's traditional offense? And, what did you think when he went to the spread or the fast break?
Well, yeah, I enjoyed playing in it, no doubt. I thought it was a shock that Coach Bowden would get into the spread, but I think it was more Mark Richt kind of convincing Coach Bowden we need to open it up a little bit more, especially when at that point they had a quarterback. I think when they did it was Charlie Ward. So he had a lot more talent in his finger than I got in my whole body. So I think that was a smart move. But playing in that offense was fun. It was great because I knew we had to be a power run game first, and it counted on our fullbacks and our O-line making holes for our running backs to get going through. And then once that started to happen, throwing the football was easy because everybody was worried about the run game. We'd do the 344 Cadillac or an Exxon, I don't know how many times at practice, but we had to get the good ball fake. We had to hide the ball. But we couldn't do any of that unless we had the run game going. So I think in that offense, it was easy for a quarterback to be able to get reads because the way we were running the football. That helped us out in Nebraska that first year that we went out there, is that we were moving the ball up and down on a team that all of us were amazed at what their weight room looked like the day before. We all walked through their weight room and said, man, I can't believe we're playing these guys. And then we get on the field and we're moving the ball up and down the field in the run game saying, oh, we can play with these guys. And you could see everyone's emotion, understand that we can do this. We all just played together and we stuck it through. It was a hot day in Nebraska when we played, but what was the best part about it is all of us came together and just played for 60 minutes, never looked at the scoreboard, just pumped it as hard as we could to get points on the board. And then at the end, take a look. And the best feeling was walking off the field and the Nebraska fans clapping for us. They never saw a team come in there and do what we were able to do to their franchise.
And let me say this. I can't overstate the confidence we would have in the huddle when Danny was calling the plays. It was just we just knew we could get it done when he was in there, and and that's not throwing shade on anybody else, but, I think as an offense, we just knew that we were going to get it done with Danny there, and that's a trait that is kind of esoteric. It's kind of out there. You can't really quantify it, but that's what he had. He brought great confidence. I just the way he commanded his presence, when he'd get the play, he'd come in the huddle and you just saw the look in his eyes and he'd say a little something and call the play, and you just knew it was going to work. And that gave us great confidence as an offense.
And that came from Coach Bowden. One of my first early quarterback meetings with Coach Bowden, he had us all in there, and this was Bob Davis, Kelly Lowry, all those guys. And guys goes, gentlemen, you got to understand, as a quarterback, you're the only spot that has 10 set of eyes looking at you, and they're able to read your eyes. If you come in there and the confidence level in you is low on the play won't work. You got to come in there into that huddle, high confidence on your face, and that that this play is going to work. In the back of your mind, you may not think it's going to work, but you got to convince those 10 other set of eyes looking at you that this play is going to work. And he just asked, I want you as a quarterbacks to raise the level of how these guys play just a 1%. If you can raise the level of everybody in that huddle by 1%, we'll be a good ball club. And that's just that started my redshirt freshman year. With all of our quarterbacks, we had to do that. We had to try to go into the huddle, no matter if we like to play or not, with the same level of confidence and distribute it to the team. And had them go out there and play just 1% better than what they could.
Now, who was your quarterbacks coach at Florida State?
Ooh, let's see. Mark Richt was a GA. Then he left, and I ended up getting Art Baker.
Okay, so you were there in '84 when Art was there.
Yeah, and then Coach Richt came back.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Did you see anything in Coach Richt at that young an age when he, as for him as a coach, that said that he would go on to have all the success he did as a head coach at Georgia and Miami?
Well, yeah, I think his communication skills were great. He was able to get the point across of what he wanted to accomplish. That helped. I think that came out when he was backing up Jim Kelly down in Miami, and he used to tell a lot of stories like that. He was able to be like one of us in the meeting room, but also be our coach. I mean, we would be there at night putting up cut up films from the 16 millimeter that you had to slice up when we had them all the way around the room, and he got us into doing that. He wasn't sure at that point when he was a GA for us if coaching was what he wanted to do. He was just doing this to see. And then I think he got a feel for it. I think we helped him as much as he helped us as quarterbacks to understand that he's a good communicator. He's a good coach. He's got a future in this. Now, after he left us, I wasn't sure he was going to come back. But when that opportunity presented itself, he came back. It was a great feeling for me knowing that he's back in and he understands the things that I wanted to do as a quarterback and to help us evolve a little bit more as an offense.
All right, I want to step away from the football field for a second because every time Mark and I tell a story about when you were playing and when you were a quarterback, he always calls you Fred. Tell us how you got the nickname Fred.
Okay.
If you can.
I don't think he remembers because he was concussed at the time.
Yeah. I was we were up in South Carolina, and we're getting our brains beat out. Remember that Red Ant defense that they had in South Carolina with the Gamecocks? And so my job during that year, that was my redshirt freshman year, was to hold the cord for Coach Bowden up and down the sidelines. So I'm going up and down the sidelines. We're getting beat up bad. And I hear Coach saying, he's talking to Coach Richt. He goes, I want to get Fred in the game. And Coach Richt, you don't understand what he's saying. I hear him say Fred. So I go get Fred Jones. I said, hey, I think Coach Bowden wants you, Fred. He comes up and Coach Bowden goes, what are you doing here? And he sends him back. Says, no, I want Mark. I want to get Fred in the game. And finally, I guess Coach Richt goes, Fred, who? And he goes, Fred McManus. And Coach Richt pauses for a second and he goes, Coach, his name is Danny and he's holding the cord right next to you. So Coach Richt has never stopped calling me Fred. I mean, I get texts from him with Fred in it. I'll get phone calls from him with Fred in it. But yeah, that name just stuck, and so I'm Fred now. So everyone.
Well, he called you Fred a second time. I don't know if you remember this. I remember this. No. So after at Auburn in '85, I think you just got concussed. Remember? And you were sitting on the sideline, and he was on the phone, and how he holds his cord next to him, and he's talking. He looks at you, and he's going, Fred. I'm sitting there looking at him, going, Fred. He goes, and you look at him, and go, Danny, Coach. Yeah, Danny.
I do remember a game one time when I think it was my sophomore year of high school, so I was still a ball boy. And I remember him calling for Pete Panton, and I think Pete had graduated a year or two before that, and he wasn't on the roster, but he wanted to run that little tight end screen. Is it?
The Gator pass.
The Gator pass. Yeah. So he was looking to put a tight end in the game, and he couldn't. Pete was no longer on the roster, so it's happened to a lot of people.
Oh yeah,
it's happened. Hey, what are some of your favorite memories of Coach Bowden, Danny?
I think
besides Fred.
Besides Fred, I think one of the ones is wondering if we were going to have a trick play that week going into every game because he wouldn't put it in until Thursday. And he would keep quiet about it because he always told us, it's my play. If it works, I give you guys credit. If it doesn't work, I'll take the blame. And it was always a wonder what he was going to have for us. But one thing, he was consistently over my 5 years there, he was a fair coach. He would tell you when you did well. He would tell you when you did bad. And he disciplined everybody the same. There wasn't any special grouping that got special privileges from Coach Bowden. He knew what it took to play football. He wanted his men to be not only good on the football field, but good in the community, good in the classroom, and he expected that. And we all had that aspect that we didn't want to let him down. Everyone says he's, a father figure. Absolutely he was. The biggest thing you didn't want to have to do was go to his office. I mean, sure, you want to go see Miss Sue, but you don't want to go past that, because in Coach Bowden's office, most of the time, not to say most of the time, but if you get called into his office, it was going to be some kind of lecturing that you're going to get. But he was a coach he loved you, but he was hard on you. And he wanted the best for you. And I think that was what is important. All of us knew that, is that we don't want to let him down.
Well, the 1985 class there's a lot of fanfare around that. Mark always said the start of the dynasty was the 84 class, but that 1987 team started the dynasty run. You guys went 11-1. Talk to us about, could you have foreseen when you came to FSU as a freshman that extending into the 1999 or 2000, that program from the time you started as a senior for the next 14 years would have one of the greatest runs in college football history?
Honestly, I didn't know that. I didn't see that when I first got there. I said we'd be middle of the road, respectful throughout the country. I think it was the 84 and 85 classes that came in that we could see the talent change quickly. It was almost like overnight. And the practices were a lot tougher. I think some of our best games were on the practice field. I mean, trying to compete during spring ball. I mean, that's when it was 20 days of hitting. And we were doing the goal line stands at the end. It got pretty competitive. So I think the coaching staff did a great job recruiting in the 84, 85 group, and it kind of mixed with the 83s that we all bonded pretty good and got some great players out of it. I mean, there's talented people all up and down the rosters from that time. But I think one of the things that we all meshed and gelled together, I mean, we were doing things in the summer of 87. We were over in the stadium for 2 hours doing one-on-ones and skeleton. With Dion, we'd get the defensive guys together. I'd get the offensive guys together. And we'd be in there on our own. It wasn't anything the coaches put on us or anything like that. We just knew that we needed to get better. We had to compete with Miami. We had to compete with Florida. If we could win the state championship, we had a shot at the national championship.
Yeah, and now a lot of people obviously remember the famous Fiesta Bowl, 375 yards against Nebraska, 87. You've also mentioned the 85 Nebraska game, which I believe y'all won 17-13 on the road. Is there any other games that stand out to you as being your favorites from your time at Florida State?
Well, the senior year, my senior year in Florida game, winning there was big. Just because we didn't win there. I mean, just to win at Florida and be in the last game. The game that I like the most is the game right after the Miami game. We played Southern Miss at Southern Miss, and they had us as their homecoming. And that was a bad scheduling on their part because, we took it to them, and they had a decent quarterback with Brett Favre there as a freshman. But our defense came out and held them, I think, as 10 points or 13 points, and offensively we put up 60. So it was we just never, from that whistle blowing at the Miami game where we didn't make the 2-point conversion till the end of the Nebraska game, we just never stopped. We had a focus in mind of what we wanted to do, and we had one thing in our set offensively was to keep putting points on the board every time we touched this football, and that came from Coach McDuffie all the way down. Is that we just got to score points and don't worry about what happens on defense.
Yeah. Do you ever sit back and think about what might have been if you had completed that pass to Pat Carter in the flat? And
yeah. Every time you'd sit there and I'd look back at it, and Ronald Lewis is sitting in the back of the end zone all by himself because Ronald's guy peels off and covers Pat, and Bubba McDowell covers Pat. It seemed like everybody was covering Pat, and Ron's sitting there in the back of the end zone all by himself. But that goes, it's one of those things. That's football. You make split decisions, and but you always think about it. Would we have still had the pedal all the way down for the rest of the year like we did after losing that Miami game? Nowadays we would have played Miami probably for the national championship.
Yep, for sure.
Right now, so it's just one of those things. And Miami did a good job. They were able to keep winning their ball games, and we did that as well. But unfortunately, we finished number 2.
Yeah. Hey, Mark, have you ever shared with him the story that you told me about Miami and tendencies in that game?
Yeah, I don't know that I ever have. Years after that, Danny was somebody I know talked to Bubba McDowell, and Bubba told them that Sammy had like 200 yards rushing that game, 190 something yards rushing that game, and for that 2-point play, when they saw Dexter in the game, they played pass the whole time. Sure. Sammy would have been in the game, we probably would have been on the fake a lot better.
Yeah.
344 Y option, right?
Yep. Y trail. Yeah.
Y trail. 344 Y trail. And so that just, to me, I said, don't tell me that. I didn't want to hear that. But then I asked Pat, because Pat's brother works at UCF with Randy Shannon, and I guess asked Randy Shannon if that was true. And Randy's like, heck no, we were triple teaming Pat Carter the whole time. It didn't matter who was in there. So that made me feel a little better anyways. Yeah.
Well, it was, on that same play, I think it was 3 weeks earlier in practice, we did 344 wide trail, and I hit Ronald on the slant. And Coach McDuffie goes, that's never going to be open. Don't ever throw it. Don't ever throw it. So after the Miami game, that Monday, he goes, I was wrong. You probably should have thrown the slant. So that's the fun part of football. You never know what it's going to be, but it's very similar to that. I mean, Sammy was in the backfield, maybe the fake's a little bit better, but Dexter was running the ball just as well. He's not a power guy, but that was a great game. I enjoyed that game, playing in it. A lot of things that went wrong, of course in the fourth quarter, but earlier than that, I mean, we had him messed up on a field goal. So snap went flying.
That was a huge play by you, because that was a field goal, right? And if they would have recovered it, that could have been a touchdown.
Yeah. It just, I mean, we were playing well that day. Give Miami credit. They came back and won, but
to this day, I think that's the best game I ever played.
Oh yeah. Everyone been a part of? Yeah. That was fun. Because you go back and look at those rosters. There's a lot of great players on those two rosters.
Yeah, a lot of NFL and CFL guys, and
Hall of Famers. NFL Hall of Famers.
Yeah,
I still remember that game like it was yesterday to some extent. That's still one of my, even though Florida State lost, it's still one of my favorite college football games of all time.
You know what? I wonder what that police officer is doing now, the one that put his hands up when Ronald caught that touchdown at the end. Because he's the one that convinced them officials, because they were not in position to make that call. But they figured if the policeman put his arms up, then it's got to be good.
I'll tell you what, another great moment was that drive to win the Nebraska game in the bowl game.
Yeah, tell the story about what he said when he came out.
You tell it, Daddy. Going in
the we just got the ball back. And, great play.
Got the fumble, caused the fumble, right? We got the fumble.
So we just got the ball back. So we come, rolling into the huddle. I said, guys, we got them right where we want them. I mean, this is what we want to do. This is what we live for. This is going to be our last drive. So let's go out and just have some fun and play. So I can't remember my exact words, but I know walking in, I had to lighten up the mood because the guys were a little bit tight running down the field because it was our last drive. We knew there wasn't much time left.
What do you give credit for that sense of calmness that you have? I mean, I remember it as you never got flustered. I don't remember you ever getting flustered as when you were in a game. I remember you just unbuckle your chin strap and come off the field, and you go back out, you walk out calmly. Where do you think that was instilled from?
Well, it's a combination. I think the trait that my mom always had. She never, got too emotional. She never watched me throw one ball at Florida State. She was at games, but she never saw me throw one pass. And the only pass she saw, I'll take that back. The only pass she did see me throw was the last one against Nebraska. That was the last one. So she never got too emotional with it as far as cheering loud or being disappointed if we lost. And then also I think from Coach Bowden. I mean, you don't want to be too high when it's things are going well. You don't want to be too low when things are going bad. So I always try to be even keel, no matter what the situation is. And you couldn't tell if I threw an interception or if I threw a touchdown based on my body actions and stuff like that. I wanted my body language to be as normal, as steady as possible, just so I don't give the wrong impression to the guys that I'm playing for.
Yeah, you of course after FSU, you went on to a long playing career in the NFL and CFL. In 1988, you signed with the Chiefs, were with them for a year, and then obviously you went to the CFL from I believe 89 through 2006, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
From 89 to 94. Now there are guys that like football, really like football, and guys that love football. Now, one of the things I did not know is from 1988 to 1994, most of your playing time came as a backup. But then in 94, when you started playing as a starter, you went on and played for 12 years as a starter and ended up throwing for 53,000 yards. What was it that made you stick with football for so long as a player? Most guys probably – and then you went on to have a Hall of Fame career. I mean, what was it that made you so successful in the pro game? What was it that what you liked about the CFL, that the offenses there that fit your style?
Well, I think the reason why I ended up playing that long is that I never really wanted to work. I never wanted to get a job. And I never thought football as work. I thought it was just fun to play. And then now that you're paying me for it, I said, well, shoot, yeah, this let's see how long we can make this gig go. And it went for a long time. But I just enjoy playing. And I think that was the fun part of it, whether it was in Kansas City. Most of my playing time was all in practice. I had a great job of holding the clipboard for Steve DeBerg and Bill Kinney and go and get whatever they wanted. You know, if they wanted water, if they wanted donuts, they wanted whatever, I'd go get it. So yeah, sure, I'll go get it for you. I just didn't know. And then getting up to Canada, it was almost the same way. I had to learn the game because it was different. Now you got 12 guys on the field. It's a longer field, wider field. And then something just clicked. I realized that I wanted to be in Canada playing the quarterback position because it gave me an opportunity to play the game and to throw the football around a little bit and just to have fun. Also, the beer is pretty good up there. It's nice water up there. So when they make it, it's good tasting. So I wanted to make sure that I had plenty of that. But I think it was one of the things that I got more involved in was drawing up plays. It was more like sandlot football because we got 5-6 receivers that can go out at a time. So it was almost like street football. And I just fell in love with that and wanted to make a full career out of it. And then now this has been over 30 years that I've been up in the CFL. So it's been fun. I mean, it's a journey that I never thought was going to happen. And the main reason was, as I said earlier, I just really never wanted to work. And I never thought football as being work. I just thought it was fun to play.
Now, did you ever play with or against any of your Florida State teammates in the CFL? I mean, because I know they have a limit on American players, right?
Let's see. I think played with Tommy Henry at Hamilton. Oh, trying to think of other guys that I might have played against. Yeah, I'm trying to think of because Paul never got up there. They talked to Paul. McGowan was thinking about coming up. Casey was thinking about coming up, Weldon. But I don't think, trying to off the top of my head, not really jumping with any names. But I know me and Tommy were together in Hamilton.
Okay. All right. Now, you retired, I believe, after the 2006 season. In 2008, you became an assistant coach for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. I think you spent a year in coaching before you got into scouting. Why did you make the decision to get off the field and go into scouting? And obviously, you're assistant GM now. Kind of tell us about the transformation from off the field into a coach, into scouting, and obviously now as an executive.
Yeah, I fell into a good spot when I was coaching. It was more just like a volunteer coaching at the time. I was only going to do it for half the year, and then I was going to come back to Florida. But then the head coach got fired. So the offensive coordinator took over and asked me to stay on to be the quarterback coach to finish out the year. So I did that for a year. Liked it. I wasn't jacked about it because it was the X's and O's. I had, 18 years of X's and O's. I wanted to get away from it a little bit. But the following year, now that offensive coordinator was promoted to being the head coach. So he asked me to stay on to be his quarterback coach and offensive coordinator. And at the time we were expecting our first child. And I didn't think it was the right time for me to have, be getting into coaching as the hours are long and our kid was going to be born 2 days before training camp was going to be open. So I said, is there anything else I can do to help you? And he goes, well, we needed somebody to get into scouting down in Florida area. I said, hey, I might be your guy because I'm moving down to Florida as well. So that's kind of how it all started. And then I just ended up, growing with the team and understanding what they look for in scouting. It's more like doing a scouting report that we get every week. What does this guy do? What's his pluses? What's his minuses? Where do you see him fitting in onto the field? And I just use everything that I've learned as a quarterback from all of our scouting reports and film study, and now put that into where can this guy play on the football field? Where's his best position, in my opinion? Can he play in our league? And if he can, let the coaches decide what spots. You can give your recommendation, but it's really up to the coaches to decide where they want to put them. And so it's just been great. I mean, I never thought this is what I'd be doing at 55 years old, but I enjoy the chase. I mean, I'm probably almost like baseball. I'm hitting, maybe 300, 3 out of 10 guys that I look at or that I sign do something, but the other 7 don't. So it's just a matter of what fits for our organization and if our coaches are excited about these guys and where they can put them in to be successful.
Yeah, and your job, similar to Mike Norvell's, has gotten a lot harder when it comes to scouting and recruiting because of COVID-19. Can you talk about how you are working around that as you look at players? You can't go on campus. You can't go – I guess you can go to games, but you can't go to practices as far as I know. And you can't go, obviously, and interact in the offices and all of that kind of thing. How difficult has that been for you as a scout?
Well, it's been a change. Beginning of the year, we were going to games. I was able to get to a few games around the state of Florida. Of course, you had to go through all the questions and the testing and wearing the mask up in the press box and that type of stuff. Middle of the season, the CFL pulled all the scouts off the road. They didn't want us out there anymore. And then it became strictly everything by film. So the same film center that the NFL uses, we're using now. So we get every game in the country, we're able to pull up on our computers, do all the film study from there to evaluate the players. The thing that you don't get is that personal upfront approach with the players where during warm-ups, what's he like at warm-ups? So you're watching him, what's his body type? Does he look like, a guy just, chiseled out of marble, or is he a little soft in some areas? You don't get that much from film. You don't get a chance to watch him on the sidelines too. I like to watch what guys do when they're on the bench while the other whether it's offense is out on the field or defense is out on the field, they're cheering their teammates on, or are they just sitting on the side waiting for their time? How do they interact with the trainers? That's all changed now. So there's a lot more phone calls to coaches, a lot more phone calls to other teams about players that they played against, that type of stuff, just to try to formulate a plan of whether this guy is a fit for your organization. And that's just been the hard part. I mean, I've been home more than I've ever been this year. And I know my family is adjusting to that because usually I'm out on the road. But that's just a big adjustment, is that my travel space now is just my office here. And that's basically where I am majority of the day, just watching tape.
Yeah, well, when you said that you had access to the coach's copy, I could see Mark's brain starting to think, how can I get Danny's password to his we always talk about how much we miss getting the coach's copy of things. So now how, obviously, I'm sure, now do you have a regions to now? When I was at USF and with the AAF, you were still had regions and scouting different teams. Now, are you still scouting the state of Florida?
The state of Florida is big, so I make sure I visit every school. So I'll see every team play live. I started to until we got pulled off the road. Then I try to get the Southeast, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi over to Texas. We have another scout that's in North Carolina area that kind of goes more north. We have one in Canada that'll catch the MAC conference, a couple bird dogs out in the Midwest, and then we have a few guys out west. So it's all kind of spread out. Get what you can get. We're only looking for 20 in the CFL because that's all you're allowed to play with is 20 Americans. Okay. So We just got to find the best 20 possible. And I mean, I'm nothing against the rest of the country, but I could probably find 20 here in the state of Florida pretty quickly and go from there. But we always want to make sure we look around and find ball players from all over the place. And majority of the time they are Florida, California, and Texas is where we're going to get a majority of our players.
Same places the colleges get them from.
Right.
Hey, so obviously you're able to follow Florida State to somewhat closely. You know, you have a pretty good idea of their talent and what's been going on around Tallahassee for the last couple of years. What are your initial impressions of Coach Norvell and what he's trying to do with this program from your vantage point?
Well, we've had a alumni. We had a Zoom call with Coach before the season started, and he invited us up there to do the victory walk and all that whenever we're in town, and was open arms to us. And I've always liked him. We've done a couple of workouts, free agent workouts at the University of Memphis when he was there, and he was very open to his program to let us come in and evaluate some of his kids and some of the area kids around there. So I like what he's done so far. I mean, you're going to have to almost get to the bottom of the barrel before you start to build it up. I like his approach. I like the way his mannerisms are on the sidelines and how he does things. In one aspect, I can see what he needs offensively, and he's waiting for that to come about. I mean, he's got to find guys that are going to buy into the program. About mainly what we were talking about earlier is to find 11 good guys that want to make this thing happen and that are going to bond together. And once that happens, then it's going to be tough to break that, because that's going to be your foundation. That's what you're going to build off of. I think Mark was talking about that earlier, is once we had that base foundation and then you bring in the 84 recruiting class, like in the 85 recruiting class, then you just build off of that. And that's what we're looking for right now at Florida State is we got to find the guys that are going to be the foundation. And I think Coach Norvell is doing a good job of making sure he gets the right people at the right spots, and then we'll build from there. I mean, a lot of the things that normally would happen you'd have some success during a season and then you would build off that in recruiting, but this is not your normal year. We got a lot of different things that are going on, and I think it's a tough spot for him right now, so it's going to take a little bit more time. But from what I've seen so far and the actions by him and the staff, and, you know, Odell being there too, I know Odell knows the tradition that we have with Florida State football. It's only going to get better. I think you're going to see once that foundation is set, then things are going to rise pretty quickly.
Yeah, so you followed Mike since Memphis then. What are your impressions of him as an offensive football coach?
I think he's very good offensively. I mean, he had some pretty good quarterbacks he had a chance to coach. I think he had Ferguson that was there. Was it Riley Ferguson? Yeah. And I think he had Brady the last year, Brady White. So he throws the football. I mean, he's got to he's looking for a quarterback that is a thrower that can run. He's not looking for a runner that can throw. He wants a thrower first. And I think that's important with his offense to make it go, is the guy's got to be accurate with the football. He's got to know where he's going with the football. And then if there's a chance to move the chains with his legs, to do that. But then also he wants to be able to run the read option to where they can pull the ball and get the RPOs going and doing it that way. But I think that's where it's got to be. He's still looking for that type of guy yet to step up at the quarterback spot. And he'll find it. I mean, it'll come. I think there's going to be quarterbacks out there that will be coming in the next couple of years that will see what coach can do and how he can help them, because he's only developed quarterbacks pretty well. And the ones that he had were real good at the college level. And I think he's getting to that point where he's got to get that right guy in there. Then things will start to take off.
Well, I want to ask both you and Mark this question. Obviously, college football is more of a quarterback-driven sport than it ever has been before. It kind of parallels professional football in that regard now. You know, they've got two freshman quarterback that will still be freshmen next year due to NCAA rules, and obviously Jordan Travis, who will be a redshirt sophomore again if he chooses to be so, and all three of them choose to come back. I'm under the impression that Mike needs to go out and sign a transfer portal quarterback if he can find one that fits his ability, and a high school guy. They just lost the commitment of Luke Altemeyer, the quarterback out of Starkville, Mississippi, decommitted this week. What do you think I think and I do believe there's a danger in trying to build your foundation with transfer portal guys. Sometimes at some point it's got to be just pipeline is recruiting. Right. What do you think that they need to do from a quarterback standpoint in recruiting this offseason?
Well, I think you're right. I think it's because he's done that before, because he's done that with Riley and he's done that with Brady. I think they were both transfer guys, if I'm not mistaken. So it's if you find the right guy, if he has to go through the portal to find the right guy that he feels is a fit, then that's the option. But because by recruiting, you are going to be 2 years down the road, and he may want to be a little bit quicker than that. So you find someone that has some NCAA experience that's looking to do what you want to accomplish. I don't have a problem with that, just to get the program getting it concrete and get it rolling. But eventually it has to come through the pipeline where you start getting some quarterbacks that have come through that are there for the 4 years and start establishing yourself that way. Yeah,
I agree. You said in one eloquent statement what I've been trying to say for several weeks, that with Jordan, we have that runner first guy, and maybe those two younger guys look like they're going to be throwers first, but they're still freshmen. And, to get where we want to get to, we got to upgrade the talent in that room totally. I mean, the more guys you have, the better off you're going to be. And so, if he finds the right fit, he finds that mature thrower first, runner second, I think he's a take. A guy that can fit his system, that will be productive and will buy in the leadership qualities that you need at that position too, obviously. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not scared of it. I think in all positions we need upgrades, but to your point, Pat, quarterback is the most important position, especially in this style of offense. And the more guys we can get that are good, the better off we're going to be.
And, Danny, I do want to ask you this because it's something that Mark and I probably talk about too much. Almost every time we get a chance, we talk about the offensive line and offensive line play. Last year, we talked about it grudgingly because we didn't want to talk about it, but we did. This year, as former offensive linemen, we're taking a little bit more pride in it because they have really, I think, exceeded their ability because they are so young. But tell us a little bit about your impressions of what Mike and Alex Atkins have done with a very young offensive line, and even some of the older guys may not be as talented as you would like. Just talk about a little bit of what you've seen about FSU's success in the run game.
Well, I definitely think they're a lot better than what they were last year. Last year, it would have been tough being a quarterback behind that offensive line. I think, and when you're dealing with the younger guys, they don't know any better. They're just going to go out there, fight and claw and do whatever they can to get the job done. And I like that part because I always tell our guys, I mean, when I was playing, the offensive lineman, I get them together, says, we'll go as far as you take us. It's not going to be the running backs, the quarterbacks, or the receivers. It's going to be those five guys. They're the only group that is that tight-knit on the football field within your offense that they got to work together. And the longer you have them together, whether it's in the same room, on the same practice field, or in the same game, they're going to get better each snap they take. And they're going to figure out what each guy's thinking. It's going to come quicker. And once you get those five established, then you can do whatever you want to do. And I think that's where Florida State is now. They got a good group. The coaches know they got a good group. Now, how can we get these guys that one step better than what they are right now? Because once they get that to that one step, then everything else will fall into place around the outside. But if you can't snap it and protect or open holes, then you're really not going to be doing anything. So it comes down to the offensive line play in all football. Any team will go as far as the offensive line will take it. I'm not just saying that because Mark's on this podcast, but it is the offensive line. They get zero recognition except for when they're holding. That's the only time people know them or things like that. But if you don't have a good offensive line, you're not going to go anywhere as a ball club.
Yeah, but that's the way you like it. But it's easy to see why we love this guy,
Well, all right. Let me ask you some general. I got some general football. This is obviously a different year in college football. The college rankings, playoff rankings, are coming out every year. it looks like Ohio State's going to play 5, 6, or 7 games when you got Alabama, let's just say the SEC and ACC, who are playing 10 and 11 game schedule. I want to ask both of you this. Does a 6 or 7 win Ohio State team deserve to be in the college football playoff?
That's a great question, because such a big deal is made in the past about data points and quality wins and all that kind of stuff. And if you're lacking 4 additional data points relative to other people you're comparing, it's inequitable. And that to me is problematic, because again, you go out to compete any given Saturday, right? And nobody's impervious to that. I mean, you can count on both hands the number of undefeated seasons in college football. So to me, it's not equitable. I have a problem with it, as good as they may be. And if the eye test is the only thing, and then why do we even have to have a season when we can just go to the beginning of the year and say, well, they look the best, let's just go with these 4 and call it a day.
Yeah, a great point there, because we've seen a lot of teams that have started 5-0 or 6-0 and have ended 6-6. You just don't know how good they're going to be or how bad they're going to be, because if injuries hit them, week 7, week 8, they could be a bad team, but they're never going to get to that point. So they're going to be the fresher of the group. Ohio State's a good ball club. I mean, talent-wise, they're right there. Do they deserve to be in the talk? Yes, but there are other teams too that deserve to be in the talk, and I think that might bite Ohio a little bit, not having enough games in, and I think some other teams may jump them if they don't get a chance to play either one of their last 2 games. They may not even have a shot at it. So it's going to be problematic for the Big Ten to figure out how they're going to do that, and to work out a plan to make sure at least Ohio State gets a shot, or it might be 2 SEC teams and 2 ACC teams that are going to be in the Final Four. And if that happens, then everybody will go crazy, and we'll get back to where we should be, is going to 8 teams to decide what this whole thing's going to be, and start games around mid-December with the championship game mid-January, and do it that way. I'd rather see 8 instead of 4. And even with this year, I'd rather see 8, just because it has been a wacky year.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'd rather see 8 all the time, but in particular this year, I think that there's some very deserving teams that are going to get left out. Cincinnati, BYU schedule's not been great, but I'd love to see what they can do with that quarterback. I do want to ask you about one NFL quarterback. I'm not a huge NFL guy, but have you ever seen anything like Pat Mahomes?
No, that is special. Just the way he's able to go out there and what he's able to do with the football, and not in the sense that what he's able to do with football with his running ability or his reads and stuff like that, but where he's able to place the ball for receivers. I mean, he does a great job putting the ball where it needs to be, whether it's upfield shoulder, back shoulder, out a yard out in front, and he does it with the weirdest throwing motion as far as technique wise. I mean, the motion is good because he's a former baseball player, but his feet are all different. His trunk strength is unbelievable, the way he's able to twist real quick and get the ball out. And the strength of his arm with the accuracy downfield is quite amazing. I mean, there's no doubt a lot of scouts did see that when they were scouting him, because he was picked late in the first round. But it's something that now everybody's looking at is when a guy is throwing a football, is he throwing it where it needs to be thrown? And Patrick was doing that in college. A little bit unorthodox, but he was getting it to the spot. Now you're starting to see a lot more people looking at quarterbacks that may not have the greatest motion, but they're looking to see where the end spot is that ball going to the right spot.
Have you had a chance to neither kid has played a tremendous amount, but the 2 true freshmen that Florida State has, Tate Rodemaker and Chubba Purdy, have you had any chance to see those 2 kids play in any of their extended playing time? And if so, what are your impressions of those 2 young men?
I saw a little bit of Purdy. That was he was the only one that I saw, and come to to full circle on it, we have his brother on our negotiation list for the CFL, Brock, Iowa State. So I know of the family and the background and all that stuff. But, yeah, I mean, you throw him into a game, it's like our first game that when we played. Everything was going 100 miles an hour. I mean, there's guys flying all over. It looks like it was fast as all get out. But more games, more snaps that you get, the game starts to slow down. You know, it's almost like the baseball guys when first time they get in the batter's box, it looks like they're trying to hit a BB from the pitcher. But more times they see it, it ends up being a beach ball. And that's where these young guys right now, they're seeing nothing but BBs coming at them. And they just got to be able to get some more reps at practice, get some more reps in the game, and take your time. I mean, I wasn't ready to play as a freshman. That's why I got redshirted and had to go up to the hill with G. McDowell and do the carnival and get hit all day on the defense. So, but
and those are some rough practices back in the day.
but you learn. I mean, that's where you learn to what it is to play football and get better at your craft, because you don't want to be on that field. You want to be on the other field. And I think that's what these guys are learning now is, hey, I don't want to be the one laying on my back looking up at the sky. I want to know where I got to go with my read, make the throw where it needs to be, and get the team moving down the field.
All right. Well, hey, but I know you got some things to do, so we're going to end up by playing a little bit of word association. Mark, you're happy to play too if I have not asked you some of these questions or mentioned some of these names. Now, Danny, you can answer in one word or one sentence, whatever you want to do. But I'd be remiss if didn't say Jimmy Callaway.
Where's your pen? I mean, I know the man just passed, but he was a hard ass. Put it that way. A great guy. He'd give you anything that you wanted, but he made you beg for it. So, yeah.
Doc Falls.
Survived. He made me a survivor. He as much as I was in there with him and Randy, I mean, Doc was awesome. I mean, he would not only talk to me about football, but talk to me about how not to get hurt, what to do differently, and kind of show me how to putt, because he always had a putter in his office. So I got to learn how to putt golf from Doc Falls. But solid guy. I have a lot of respect.
The thing I took away from Doc Falls is I don't allow people to wear orange in my house, and because we weren't allowed to wear orange in the training room. And I kind of took that away from him too.
and for those of you that don't know who Doc Falls is, he was a longtime FSU athletic trainer before Randy Orvitz, and of course Jimmy Callaway was the longtime equipment manager who just passed about 3 weeks ago. All right, if you had to choose between the first, Ken's, or Late Night Library, or the Palace to go out one last time, where would you go?
First.
The first. All right. So did you ever break up bladder bust?
I never broke bladder bust. No, because we always put the
line in the
bathroom. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Tomerlin would have broken in half.
Yeah.
All right. Coble Terrace.
Woo. It was fun. Yeah, we had some good times there. I liked it better than Burt Reynolds Hall.
Okay. All right. It was a hell of a lot more fun. I know that. I was just old enough where I could go to Coble before y'all closed. I was a frequent visitor to Ronnie Andrews' apartment at Coble Terrace. All right. Now, two more questions, and we'll let you go. Number one, looking back now and what Florida State has become as a football program and university, what's that mean to you, knowing that you had such a significant impact in building what it's become? What does it mean to you looking back now?
Well, I think looking back for all of us that we were a part of it. I mean, it's great to be associated with a university that is not only good in all sports, but is also good academically. And I think that's one of the things that we take from it as being alumni of it, is that it's well respected throughout the country, and to be a part of an athletic program with the football department to establish something that has a long living tradition that'll live forever. I mean, it's just great to be a part of.
Yeah, and of course,
I was going to say I'm amazed every time I go back how it's changed, and all for the better. From the stadium to the facilities to everything. And it's often said that the football program is the front porch to a university, and to know that we had plenty to contribute to that, it gives me a great amount of pride.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, you guys, a lot of guys that built this thing, obviously, but, Mark, y'all, you literally put the bricks around the stadium. But both of you,
as a GA working during the construction,
but both of you helped build that place. And Danny, I can't thank you enough for coming on and spending an hour with us. We would love to have you back. We'd love to get some thoughts from you on FSU's quarterback prospects as they become more apparent going towards National Signing Day in February. And then, of course, we'd love to get your thoughts as FSU winds up the season. But thank you so much for joining us. Mark and I, like I said, have been talking about this for a long time. I wanted to make it happen, and sorry we took so long to get to you.
No worries. No, I appreciate it. The opportunity to talk to you guys and talk some Florida State ball and to see Mark's face. Usually I just see the back end of him, but to see the front end is good too.
Both about the same.
You said it before I did.
I sat it out there. So.
Not as hairy on the back end, I don't think.
No.
All right, we're taking this a little bit too far. We probably need to wrap this up. Hey, subscribers and listeners, we hope you enjoyed it. Danny and Mark, thanks, and look forward to catching up again soon on Seminole Sidelines.
This has been another edition of the Osceola's Seminole Sidelines. To subscribe to the Osceola, go to theosceola.com. And right now, enter the code FSU20 and get 20% off your annual subscription. That's FSU20. Go Noles!